You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Lou Need, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Caroline Schley. Originally from New York City, now living in Madrid, Caroline has lived in China, New Zealand, and Spain. She worked everywhere from an NYC marketing company to a Southern Hemisphere ski resort. About 10 years ago, she settled on her current profession as teaching high school science. Caroline is now taking some time off to write adult fiction. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
I'm excited to have you on board. Tell us you're like a world traveler. Tell us about your journey.
Well, I think I've always been really attracted to living in different places, and that has served me well through my life. I grew up in New York City. I went to high school in a couple different places on the East Coast, and then my first big move was for my undergraduate degree. I moved out to Colorado and graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder. And then after college, decided to just sort of pursue work that would allow me to keep moving around. So I've worked in a bunch of different industries. I worked in the ski industry for a long time. I worked in marketing briefly in New York City, and did sort of a handful of other things on my way to my teaching career, which has been really satisfying for about the last 10 years.
Awesome. You sound very young, but yet have a wealth of experiences. What did you do at the ski resort? I love skiing. So when I hear skiing, I want to know what people do.
Oh, yeah. So I worked in a few different capacities at some different ski resorts. I started working in lift ops at a resort in New Zealand on the southern island of New Zealand called Treble Cone right after college. And then I actually moved to California, to Northern California, and worked a few different jobs at some ski resorts up there. The most significant thing that I did was I managed the Nordic skiing program for the resort at Squaw Creek, which was really fun because it let me, I had been really into downhill alpine skiing. Mm-hmm. And Nordic skiing was sort of like a new adventure that let me appreciate the sport in a whole different way.
Yeah, skiing is really a tremendous sport. I love it so much that being in California, you have to go to Big Bear to do it. And that's the beauty of living out here. You get the beach, and then 2 hours away, you can go up the mountains.
Yeah, you get everything.
It's really fantastic. Now, I know your background is in science. You are you love reading. You're very sciencey, and you do evaluations.
Yeah, well, so that's sort of like a part of my routine that is really important to me is evaluating, as I move around so much all over the world. I think I've realized the importance of maintaining a steady routine, especially a morning routine. And it tends to change depending on sort of what work I'm involved in and where I am in my life. But something that I think is always really important in my morning routine is self-evaluation.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So tell us about the importance of evaluating and switching it up in your own life.
So I think one of the reasons that I have moved around so much and been able to pursue so many different kinds of work is I always am careful to take the time to think about if I'm happy with what I'm doing. If the answer to that question is no, I'm able to explore the reasons why that might be and things that I can do to change my circumstances and try to be happy in like sort of in my day-to-day life, and then in that way in my larger existence.
Yeah. So that's very crucial, that sense of self-assessment to actually decipher where you are, where you're going. And if you're doing something that you're unhappy with, to have the courage to do something about it. One, recognizing it, and then take a step to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that taking the steps to change it, like that part can take a long time to figure out. But as long as you feel like you're an active participant in a journey, like that's a very important part of the process.
Mm-hmm. You have buy-in from yourself.
Yeah, you have buy-in from yourself. I love that.
Yeah, you're invested. Now you have a routine in place, that your current morning routine, you have an acronym for it, which is beautiful. You term it as RIGHT. Tell us about RIGHT.
Yeah. So since I'm taking some time off to work on novel writing, I thought that it would it's nice to have sort of like a themed acronym for what you do towards that every day, so that when I think about what I'm going to do in the morning, I think right, which guides the structure of my whole day. And none of those steps are actually writing, but I think that they're like the things that prepare me to do creative writing every day. And so the W, it's, write spelled like you write with a pen. The W stands for wake. And I think it's important to consider in your morning routine how you wake up and what you do immediately upon waking, because that really does set your brain rhythms for your whole day. So if the first thing that you do is grab your phone and start looking at social media, that sets a very different kind of intention for your existence that day than if the first thing you do is like take a big stretch and drink some water and just take a minute to think about how your dreams were and how you're feeling. So for me, when I wake up, I like to make sure that I drink some water, and I like to take a few minutes to really like come into my body and come into my day. The R then stands for review, which for me means thinking over either the things that I have to do in the day that is coming up, or thinking over the things that I did in the day that has just passed. And that can sort of like, I give myself some leniency in if I want to think back on what's already happened, or if I want to think ahead to what I'm doing next. And then I take some time to imagine what my best possible day would look like, and set maybe like 2 or 3 small goals for things that I know would make my day really successful. And then I like to do something to test myself. And that can be just like something to sort of get your rhythm going for the day, to feel like you're setting yourself up for success. So nothing too difficult, but like I'm going to stretch for 2 minutes, or I'm going to do a New York Times mini crossword puzzle, or I'm going to draft out a blog post before I even get out of bed. And it doesn't have to be good, but I just have to do it. A test that I know that I can sort of like pass so that I feel like I'm going to have a successful 24 hours.
And you change it up depending on the day?
Yeah, I change it up depending on the day, depending on how I'm feeling. I'll sometimes like go to bed with a really strong intention of something that I want to do the next morning. And I'll sometimes just like in the spur of the moment think like, oh, I'm going to draw a picture, take 2 minutes to draw a picture. And it doesn't. And sometimes, it's like a more significant endeavor. Like the test myself portion of my morning could be, I'm going to read through 40 pages of my manuscript, but like I like to make sure that it's something that I am pretty sure I can do successfully in the confines of whatever time I feel like I have for it. Just because I think that mental pattern of having a success early in the day, like I think that for me, that's really important in feeling like I want to keep challenging myself and setting new goals and seeing if I can achieve them.
Yeah. I really like that. Same thing with making your bed, is achieving being productive.
Yeah, exactly.
It leads,
something like a win. You get a win early in the day.
Yeah.
And then I like to take a little bit of time to evaluate what's going on with me. Like, am I happy? Am I not? What was it? If I had a question that I heard recently that I think is like a really nice thing to ask yourself is if the day that you had yesterday was a day that you were going to have again, like what would you do differently? So I think that's like an interesting evaluation question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Something along those lines, to evaluate where you want to go with your day, and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I like your acronym because I'm developing an app with an acronym to around morning routines. This is what I've found out from entrepreneurs that come on the show. Like, what are the things that are reoccurrent? What are the things that they do? And for you, they're in there. As I'm listening, your right acronym fits into the app. The app is called Hit Savers, and each letter is a habit.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. So similar to yours. So the way, I love the way you said when you wake up, like you have to be intentional what you do, because even doctors and psychologists have showed that what you do in the first 8 minutes truly sets the tone for the rest of it. And if you're scrolling through social media, like you mentioned, like that's a habit of its own. It's like the habit of not meditating, it's a bad habit, right? And so when these habits are forming without our permission, like if you do something consistently and long enough, it becomes ingrained. It becomes your ritual.
Absolutely.
It's kind of scary with social media. You'll find yourself, if you do it within the first 10 minutes of the day, you'll find yourself every hour having the urge, the desire to check. And that's when a habit is forming.
Yeah. Because I think it does something to your brain chemistry, that those things you do very early in your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Sets a tone. Like you said, you're getting up and drinking a glass of water. That's the first acronym on my app is hydrate. First things first.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so you're right up the alley. It's really, I really like your acronym and the test.
And I think it's the teacher in me. I just love acronyms.
And it coincides with what you're doing now. You're writing. And so it's like habit stacking, right? You're associating with what you're already doing. So it's easy for you to get up in the morning. You don't want to give yourself an excuse to not see it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the beauty of morning routines. Can you tell us the importance of habits and patterns? You mentioned that our brain needs to follow a pattern. You set it up. You have a pattern, something for you to follow because your brain needs it and it helps you carry through. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. So I think for me, the importance, people want patterns in their lives. Like they sort of hunger for routines and seek them out. And for me, the important thing is always to evaluate the routines that I have in my life and make sure that they're like helping me actively pursue what I'm trying to do with myself. Because without even trying, you're going to settle into habits and patterns and routines. But if you're not thinking about it, if you're not trying, if you're not making like an active choice to be in your routines, then you might settle into routines that like are not very productive. So that for me, when I think about the patterns in my life, that evaluation step gets really important.
Yeah. And you are assessing your in the imagination. It's like goal setting. You're goal oriented at that point. You're directing your action, your motives towards something to accomplish, which actually builds confidence. Not only that, but fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you get to do what you love. You get to write fiction and adult fiction books. You get to take the time off and do this. That's really fantastic. So tell us about your book and what drove you to do adult fiction.
Yeah. So it's actually young adult fiction, the writing that I'm doing. And I think teaching high school, for almost 10 years, I just had so many great interactions with my students and sort of had them building in my mind. And there was just the potential, I think in great education, there is a lot of great storytelling and the opportunity to be in a room with a bunch of teenagers and be creative and hear about their lives is just gives you so much fuel for a big endeavor like a writing project. And I just find it to be such a fascinating age.
Yeah. Do you find yourself being a voice for them?
I mean, I hope so. I think it's I definitely feel like it's an outlet for me. And I think that since I have a lot of interaction with that age group, I have like some authentic language and experiences in there that are like sort of true to contemporary young adult experience. And I have my ex-students review my writing, and they always come up with like the most interesting critiques, and they sort of keep me honest about like if I'm able to represent them, to be a voice for them. And that's been really great.
Tell us how to connect with you.
Oh, yeah. So I have a website that's easy. That's just my name, CarolineSchley.com. And all my stuff is on there. I have links to articles that I've written, some press stuff, and then my blog, which is you can also access directly at rhymeswithfabulous.com. And that's, I post, I make a goal to post like once a week on there. And it's sort of a mix of travel articles and personal essay writing. And then I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter at Caroline Schley, and I'm on Instagram at C_Schley. And I update all that stuff pretty regularly. And I love to connect with people on any of those platforms.
Morning enthusiasts, you've heard it here first. This has been Caroline Schley. I really like your WRITE acronym for your morning routine. And as a writer, it makes sense. It's wake up with intention and be mindful of how you spend the first few minutes of your day.
Yeah, I think that's
when you wake up and have the review process. And you said it's reviewing the past, yesterday, and looking at what worked well.
Yeah, that's really important. And then also like looking towards the future day, what you want to accomplish in the day that's coming up.
And then that leads into the imagination, setting up some goals and attaining and writing them down, and then testing yourself, accomplishing that getting that small win. I enjoyed your conversation this morning. I thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,